we were having this, maybe because we were having this session today, I actually thought to myself, hey, I should, something kind of just came to mind. So just one quick story. I put two rugs into the dry cleaners just like maybe 2 months ago. And literally they sent the rugs back because now with the pandemic, do so much delivery. So they sent the rugs back to me. Um, the white fringe had turned pink. And I said, well, I'm pretty sure I didn't send a pink rug to be cleaned. And the dry cleaners had cleaned it for me successfully before. So I'm wondering like, this seems weird. And I know the owner, we text regularly. He didn't say anything to me. It just sort of showed up pink. So I'm pretty upset and I'm thinking something has to be done. So I immediately text him and say, with a picture of the rugs, and I'm like, they're pink now. They need to go back to being white. What did you do wrong? What's going on? You also have charged me for now pink rugs. So he immediately says, I'll come back and get them. I'm sorry, I didn't even know, the staff sent it. So for approximately 2 months, he tells me he works on turning the pink fringe back to white. And it didn't happen, right? He literally dropped off the rugs again this past week. This time texting me, I'm really sorry, Corintha, but this is the best I could do. I'll give you a call. I'm already thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to negotiate and advocate now, right? Because my husband bought these rugs like 20 years ago in like the Himalayan mountains, and I'm never gonna replace these rugs. So I'm gonna have him upset. The gentleman is a small business owner. I mean, what am I gonna ask for him, right? So I start thinking to myself, what do I actually want, you know? And I talked to my husband about it and said, I'm gonna ask him for $300. It was a highball. I don't think the rugs, sentimental value aside, are worth $300, but I was like, I'm gonna do it. And my husband says, great, go for it. So I probably waited a few more days to reach out to the laundromat, frankly, because I was so anxious about it. I realized I was out of practice and I didn't want to have a chat negotiation via text. I really didn't want to do that. But I wasn't going to go to the laundromat to go face to face with this person either. So anyways, I thought about these tips today. I employed them. I'm going to get $150 for these rugs, and to be quite honest, I told my husband I'm going to cut the fringe off because no one's going to get that pink off that fringe. And I'm over it. So, and when he said 150, I said, done. Because that was kind of what I had gone into it thinking I would get. So, we can negotiate anything we want to, but you've got to think to yourself, what do you really want? How badly do you want it? Right? We're social animals who collaborate and cooperate with each other to satisfy our needs. So you're already using these tools that I will share today. I think some people already said that in the chat. They already are good negotiators. Through life, you have to negotiate with family, friends, colleagues, whomever. Negotiate space for yourself on the train. I mean, every day is a negotiation, whether you not know it or not. And the truth is that many of us fail miserably at negotiating and advocating for ourselves, primarily around money. And I'll tell you the secret, we're the worst when negotiating for ourselves. And why? Because we care too much. That's really what it is. You want something so badly and you can't imagine a future not having it. So you relent, you don't even ask, you don't even get into the arena. So hopefully now that you know this, that you're the worst when negotiating for yourself, likely, you will let go of any feeling that you're hopeless and that other people are better, because it's just not true. For years, I had this belief that my husband was an excellent negotiator, because he is, but also because he really believed it. And he entered every negotiation with the belief that he was going to win that negotiation. He also believed the other person was going to win too, but he wasn't walking out of there without winning. Um, so you know, pulled that confidence into myself when negotiating those $150. So here's what I employ when I feel anxious. I pretend I am negotiating on behalf of someone else, right? So I start third personing it, right? Carintha needs blah, 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 you know, or it's easy to use somebody else as an excuse as to why you need something, right? Um, I try to be mindful of my body language and facial expressions. Sometimes we look dejected, we freeze up, we roll our eyes, we look away. You know, these are all things that people can read on you, and it can either exhibit confidence or lack thereof, maybe disinterest. Maybe sometimes you want to look disinterested in a negotiation. So that could actually be a strategy. And I practice and I practice. So I run scenarios through my head, like with the rug. I did a quick role play with my husband, and then I go for it, right? And then I go ahead and pretend that I'm amazing and deserving. And I be honest, I don't often think that I'm amazing, but I just say you're amazing. You know, you're gonna get it. Next. So let's talk about advocating for yourself. You need to decide what you want and do your research, not what your parents want, your kids, your boss, your neighborhood, whatever, literally you. So this one was really difficult for me. I barely knew what I wanted when people asked me, let alone when they did not, you know? Um, so I had a really super mental block, and I think it was in 2002, which goodness gracious was 20 years ago. A girlfriend suggested I read What Color Is Your Parachute? When I told her I had no clue what to do with my life. And, she told me to read this book, and I promptly ignored her because that's what you do when people give you helpful advice, right? So um, I somehow ended up coming to the affordable housing world where I happily reside. But in 2012, now 10 years ago, I came to a crossroads. Was I doing stuff just because? Who was I? I mean, all of this sounds really touchy feely, right? Well, it really worked to do the exercises in the book. And it's the first step of any advocacy and negotiation. You have to understand you, right? And I want to be clear that I'm framing this around career and promotion trajectory and even salary. Obviously, you can take this and apply it to anything, right? But that's what I'm focusing on. So I highly recommend this book. I think it comes out in a new version every year. With pretty much the same detail. You can find old versions and use it. Highly recommend it. Please don't try to read the screen, it's way too small, but absolutely get the book. So maybe exercises aren't for you. Once upon a time, I kept a journal. Writing without fear of being politically correct or smart or funny. I'm uncensored and honest and direct with myself. And I think it's important to get to that space with you. You might say to yourself, man, I've been doing XYZ all this time. I've been an architect and I went to school for this, and this is so important to me. And as you start writing the exercises, you realize that's actually not where I'm headed right now. It takes a lot to sit with that. And you might have a lot of reasons why you don't want to move away from something, but just being clear that the advocacy and negotiating needs to be authentic. So I try my best in my journal to write only what I want, literally only what I want. So to recap, step number one, identify what you want. Step number two, identify only what you really want, not the backup plan. Because when negotiating, you should be negotiating and advocating for as few things as possible, right? literally go for the goal. Don't go for plan B, C, D, all the way to Z. It muddies your negotiation. It confuses you. These tips won't work. So just focus on one thing. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So all negotiations have a common core, TIP, time, information, and power. So if you understand these pieces, you can manage any negotiation. Next slide, please. So here we talk about time. You must be prepared to be more patient than the other side. Deal with unresolved conflict, ambiguity, uncertainty. So I wanted to say that there is a deadline rule, right? Concessions, agreements, resolutions happen close to or at the deadline. I'm sure you've seen this on the news with like unions bargaining or our own government. Basically resolution happens when there is a fall off cliff deadline, right? So without a deadline, if sometimes people don't have an incentive to listen to you, change a behavior, or compromise. So just know that there are deadlines. So next we talk about symmetry. Oh, sorry, go back. We're not done. Not done with time there. Can you go back? Okay, I'll keep talking. So where symmetry does not exist with a respect to timeline, the person with the later deadline has an advantage. So if the other side knows your deadline, they have the upper hand, even when both sides have the same deadline. And you have to ask yourself, are you willing to go beyond your deadline? One tip is to make the other side believe that you do not have a deadline. If your request is urgent, then it can be met with an urgent response of no. So if someone tells you they have a deadline, then try to question that and kind of get to the bottom of it. Be patient. Quickness is risky. If caught by surprise, stall, delay, use time. You never have to agree to something without taking the time you need to consider. So use time to your advantage. Someone asks you a snap question, you don't have to actually respond. You don't have to respond at all. You don't have to respond any kind of way. You can actually sit there and think, thanks for that question. Let me think about that. Or, oh, someone else is calling. No, I'm not, not encouraging you to lie, but I'm just saying, use time to your advantage. You don't have to respond if you're not ready to respond. And expect, if that is something that's difficult for you, you're not a quick thinker, you maybe need time. People, maybe that the person you're engaging with is going to try to take you off balance. Expect ahead of time that they're going to do this. Have a prepared response of, oh, I asked that question, you asked me another question back. Let me get back to you. That's it. What are they going to say about it? Nothing. So I think though that if you start telling people, by the way, that this is my best and final offer, to kind of suggest that your deadline is right now and you're moving away, that's pretty drastic and dramatic. It absolutely is an approach that works, but just be prepared that if you start saying best and final or final, or deadline is right now, I'm moving away if you don't do X, Y, Z, they really may not. They may call your bluff, right? Or they may really just not want to agree with you and decide it works for me to just walk away. So you have to also walk away too. Using final language puts you in a place where you can't back off and collaborate a little bit more. So the next is be really patient and calm under fire, right? So for example, if you ask your boss for a promotion expect him or her to say something mean, offensive, sad. Just expect it. Like the nicest people, when they hear I want more money, will say something mean, offensive, and sad. um, so expect to be taken off guard. They don't mean to, but people bring their own stuff to conversations, right? And that's okay. So instead of also saying something mean, offensive, and sad, um, prepare in advance something scripted, like, oh, interesting. Thank you for your feedback. Or, oh, okay. Um, I actually have to go join a conference call, or I needed to go do X, Y, Z, but I'll follow up with you. Then leave the room, leave the Teams call, the Zoom call, whatever it is. Um, go call your mother, text your friends, go to the parking lot, scream, cry, whatever you need to do, go write it in a book, um, get it off your chest, whatever emotion or feeling or upset that you are experiencing, and then think rationally about your response, right? Because even if someone does that and you don't like it, expect it, right? And there's still a way forward to get what you want. Um, and so I wanted to also point that there are a few things that can kind of happen with time. Per se, it's a stalemate, right? Where it's temporary pause in negotiations. And so what do you do here? You wait, just wait. An impasse on one particular issue. They agree to the salary, or they agree to the title, but not the salary, or salary without a particular benefit. Um, but maybe you have other issues on your list. So skip over the one issue, move on to the next until you've kind of gone down the list, right? And then frankly, you might end up at the stalemate on that one issue, or you might end up in a deadlock where maybe nothing is happening for like a month, or more. You should just know that people will come back if there is a need that should be met. So we can actually go on to the next slide, because you need more information. You need to know what the need is that is not being met. So another great story that I did share years ago. So I remember on a first interview once, a manager asked me if I had children, and I was completely unprepared for this clear ploy to learn about me so that she would know what type of salary, hours, everything. You're not even allowed to ask questions like that, but she did. And then she followed up with the question, how much do you currently make? And I know that people probably still get asked this question, maybe both of them, frankly. And at the time I thought, like, my whole face had fallen. I thought, oh gosh, because an offer was going to be tendered, right? But I thought, now I'm going to get the worst deal. At the time I was single. I was already underpaid by the previous job. So I was like, oh gosh, now I'm going to get, $5 more. And I did. I got the worst deal, right? And I took the worst deal. You know, I didn't know at the time, I didn't understand at the time that I didn't have to, right? And so I definitely suggest role playing some answers to uncomfortable questions. I'm sure you can Google uncomfortable questions that interviewers ask and find a whole Reddit thread on it. Like, go ahead, ask it, think it through. Once again, focus on your facial expressions, your body language. Expect that something will be thrown at you that you will not be happy about. Actively listen. And so a lot of us say a lot, but don't actually take the time to really listen to what information is being shared. So, you have to understand that information might be given to you to set the stage for why you cannot receive something as well. So didn't do well last quarter. Um, Developer fees didn't come in. These are all things that you might hear in larger meetings or directly from your boss that could very well set the stage. Conversely, we did really well, high five, you know. Um, just listen for what is going on at your company and with your boss in your particular line of business. Um, so why don't people actually get information? One, because we're judgmental. So I I know people like this. Maybe you do too. Um, so we just assume we know what we before asking. Number two, we don't trust because we don't have past experience to tell us how the other side will react. Three, we are hesitant to ask if we expect bad news. We don't want to be uncomfortable. This is literally me, right? I don't want to ask because I don't want to know. I don't want to hear no. Um, and so I get really uncomfortable. But you've got to find ways to find the information. You can find information through other colleagues, um, literally reading articles on the internet about how your industry is doing. You can talk to mentors. You can talk to your friends at WIFPA who work in similar fields, know all of the same people, right? It's one big happy community, right? So if you don't have the information and you're unwilling to go within your organization to find it, you can probably find people who left the left the company 2 years ago, have a best friend that works at the company, et cetera, et cetera. So there's more than one way to get information. Next slide, please. So the best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to actually trust them. Uh, this is important. So if you're working if you have a manager and you're not developing trust, that is really tough. That's a tough place to be in. You want to develop that trust with them. You don't want it to be them and me. You want it to be us. So we need to enhance trust to demonstrate the capacity to understand others' problems and help solve them, right? Um, so we do this by communicating a shared sense of values, attitudes, and common interests. Um, Also, whenever possible, phrase questions for positive answers. You want to get people in the habit of saying yes to you, right? But you need trust. Um, Negotiation is definitely not, it should not feel combative and unhappy. Okay, next slide, please. So next is power. Um, so there's a lot to say about power, but I think the most relevant is to say that power is based on perception. And if you think I have it, I have it, and whether I have it or not. And similarly, if you think I don't have it, even if I do, it doesn't matter. So it's an attitude that you bring um, to the conversation. So with me in the rug situation, the power I brought was I do a lot of business with you, and I will continue to give you my business if you do me a solid and reimburse me for this rug. I asked for $300. I'm not even pushing for the 300. I won't even tell you the full conversation, but I was like, I'm not backing out of this conversation with nothing. And the power I bring today is I will no longer launder my clothes with you. That's completely far from the truth. I need these people. I have a toddler. Do you know how much laundry I do? Like, I can't live without these people. But they don't know that, right? And so they have to believe that I'm so important and that I'm going to take all my business elsewhere. Power matters. So, we often underestimate ourselves, and we look at ourselves through a microscope that is really unfair, right? So believe that you have the power. So next slide. So we've talked about some things, and I know that Karen and Jackie have been, it seems, waiting for an acting debut. So um, let's go ahead. Let's do it. This is a role play for the dreaded salary increase request. Go ahead, ladies.
Okay, so I'll get started. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Doing well, Jackie. How are you doing?
I'm well. Can I schedule a time to talk to you?
Why? What do you want to discuss?
Well, I haven't had a review in a while, so I thought we should have a talk.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry I haven't scheduled a review. Take a seat. Let's do it now. Let's talk.
Okay, thanks.
So I think you're doing well. What do you think?
I think I'm doing well. I'm really enjoying the work and excited to be here.
Great. Then I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, we are. Thanks. I wanted to know if I might get a raise this year.
I'm not sure. This has no bearing on what you've been doing. You've been doing a great job and great output of production, and you're doing really well, but I don't know if I have anything in my budget right now for raises.
Okay, well, just wanted to raise the topic. I'm sure you have some work to do, so I'll leave now.
Great. Okay. Thanks for stopping by, Jackie.
Thanks, Karen.
Oh my goodness. So number one, excellent acting. Number two, this role play was so painful to follow. And what's worse is I have lived this more than once. Maybe all of you have as well. So let's try it again, Jackie and Karen.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm well. Do you have a moment?
I'm actually about to go into a meeting in like 5 minutes. Is it really quick?
Oh, no. Actually, I have something to complete. I'll come back.
Okay.
Hi, Karen. I'm back.
Oh, great. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I haven't had a review in a while, so I want to do a check-in with you. I recently completed that senior deal in Philadelphia. Can you give me some feedback?
Well, you did well. You were able to manage your team well. How did you feel about the pro forma work you did?
I think I have a better grasp of the numbers than 5 months ago when we first discussed my need for development there. At this point, I want to work on my draw schedule. Can I sit with you to show you my work?
Of course. I'm glad you kept working on it. Every developer needs to control their own budget.
Exactly. I think my role is evolving. And when I first got here, I was responsible for assisting deals and now managing one deal. How do I get to a place where I have the project manager title and I'm getting a salary?
Great question. And yes, you are taking on a great deal more. I see the progress. I think you have a great grasp on the management of your team, but need to strengthen your your pro forma skills. I'm happy to hear that you're enjoying the work and you want to build your career. I think your ability to take on a new title and salary is dependent upon how quickly you progress.
Okay, that makes sense. What steps do you suggest I take to put me on the right path?
I think to put you on the right path, Jackie, to follow up regularly, you have to kind of direct your own growth. At some point in the future, we kind of could talk, maybe.
Okay. 3 days later, just using that as a term. um, okay, well, thanks for the new title that you gave me because I've been working on it. We discussed previously that if I follow the steps you suggested, I would obtain a new salary. Can I expect the increase in the next pay period?
Unfortunately, no. You have been doing such a great job, but I can't increase your pay now. The budget is just so tight.
Okay. Thank you for the praise. It means a lot to me. I really do love this job. As for my pay, I understand, but I do want to earn that salary. Is it possible, though, to increase my compensation by offering other incentives, like paying for my cell phone or increasing my 401k, your 401k contribution to me, offering a company car, tuition reimbursement, maybe even a professional development course?
Hmm. I have to review with our CFO, but these are really good ideas.
Okay, great. I'll follow up with you on Tuesday. I appreciate your help to help me to get to my goal. Thanks.
Great.
So thanks, Karen and Jackie. This interaction was much more positive, right? So let's point out some things that we saw. In the first interaction, Jackie is only interested in asking for a raise. She is uncomfortable, has no plans, and gives up before she even gets started. She also, if you noticed, um, didn't use that element of time in her to her benefit. Karen just said, "Sure, sit down," and she was like, "Okay," as opposed to thinking, and she was completely unprepared to have that conversation. Um, in the second interaction, Jackie is much more in charge of her plan. She does not agree to talk when she knows she won't get enough attention. She brings up her recent work and asks for feedback. And it sounds like even previous to that, she had asked for some feedback. So this has been an ongoing conversation, right? So she's honest about her competence around the budget, yet she speaks positively about herself and talks about her plans to improve. This shows self-direction, confidence, passion for the work. She asks for help from her boss to reach her total goals instead of only asking for a raise. She has prepared questions in case salary is not forthcoming, things she wants as much as salary. She is partnering with Karen to solve her compensation problem, and she declares that she will follow up. When asking your boss for a raise, understand how the money flows through your company. I think that's really, really important, and many of us don't. Um, our companies run on fiscal years, um, monies come in large tranches. Many of us are invited to phone calls where we hear about the health of our entire business, and we can understand really well if the company is doing well or not. If the company is not doing well, that doesn't mean that we cannot ask for resources for ourselves. I'm just saying that it's an important element of your um, information seeking and negotiation, right? Um, I have personally asked for salary increases effective a certain date in the future, and that been agreed to. Um, and I did that because I used time to my advantage. Like, I was asking January 1 because I cared about what was happening in June. Don't ask in June for June money. It's not going to come. It's just not going to come. So don't ask for it then. Ask back in January, ask the year before. Got to do a little bit of pre-planning. And things come up for us for any reason. Uh, but that's not how money is dispensed to people. And I just want to say too, as part of that trust that you're building, you should trust, you hopefully will trust that your boss wants to compensate rock stars. And if you are a growing, striving, thriving rock star, they want to compensate you and they want to keep you and keep you happy. Um, but they're often feeling other pressures. So you need to get to know those pressures as part of your information research, not as part of your fear building to not ask for something, just so you understand. Okay, next slide. So the 3-stage process. So preparation is number 1. Months before any review, this is your lead time. Discuss with your boss your goals and learn what you need to accomplish to reach them. During the prep time, discreetly check out your marketability. I'm sure that through this WIFBA network and other networks that you have, you can start to ask and find out, hey, anything opening up, curious, have light informational phone calls, have a coffee, a tea, a quick Teams, meeting just to ask people what's going on, express curiosity about what other companies are doing, just get to know what people think about you. And I think that this does a couple things. It decreases your anxiety, maybe hopefully increases your self-confidence about yourself. So you can go into the next steps without feeling stressed. And frankly, it's really good to hear about marketability from external. You find out what people think about you, what they've heard about you, what they want to see from you before they hire you to do XYZ for XYZ money. So it's really, really just important. The problem solving event, this is when you actually schedule the meeting with your boss, employing a low key approach, asking them to help you solve your compensation problem. And hopefully you've done all the things that your boss said to do 6 months before. Nevertheless, expect a negative response, or when I say negative, maybe just not what you really were hoping for. But ask your boss to help you. Your boss knows where the other goodies are. So if it's not coming in salary, it might be coming in additional training, business trip, if you want to travel and rack up travel points and miles. I mean, there are other ways to get to where you want to go. And if the answer really is still no, and it's just a hard no all around, then you need to understand why your boss is saying no. There could be a bigger issue going on. But once you understand it, maybe you can understand if the no will change at a later date, right? If it's just a no, 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 it might be time to go. But a lot of times that's not the case. You actually just need more information. So persistence last, work hard to get your answer and don't let up. So, if and when you do not get what you want, does it make sense to sit there and be bitter? Absolutely not. This is a bad, bad idea. So you're bitter, your work actually, loses any sign of improvement. And so instead of your boss even thinking about giving you a promotion, they're now thinking about how they get rid of you. And they start complaining to you about, complaining to you to other companies. Because once again, it's a very small world. People have coffee and tea and whatever else. And people say, oh, how are things going? Oh, well, so-and-so, oof, really hard, tough. And she wants a raise, never the case, but I'm just saying you don't want to be in that position. So if you're finding that your persistence and your research around time, information, and power and problem solving is not working for you, truly consider finding a new arena to be in. And truly also consider what, if anything, needs to be improved within yourself, whether it's maybe you investing in additional skills, or learning that a particular role is just really not for you, and that's okay. So next slide, please. So I just want to leave with some parting thoughts that, like, win-lose strategies do not work for long-term relationships. So I think if it's a one-off negotiation at a marketplace on your travels, and you want to have fun and go barter and be like, no, 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 I'm giving you $2 instead of 100, you'll never see this person again, and you're just having fun and that's part of the scene, then go for it, have fun. But when it comes to your career and developing your career, I think many of us who've been around for enough time know that we all know each other for a really long time. And it does not it does not feel good to be in a win-lose relationship. Ultimatums do not work. They don't feel good. People backed into a corner will pay to make you suffer later. So work on win-win resolution instead. And mistakes in negotiation are inevitable. Why? Because they are not scripted, you know? I asked for $300. Why did I take 150? You know, do I feel like maybe I should have held out for 200? Yeah. Do I feel a little angst about it? A little. But then I was like, next time, okay? Like I realized in that moment that I was completely out of practice, and the next negotiation I might try a little harder if I actually do care, you know? So if in a negotiation, you think that maybe you have made a mistake and it doesn't feel right, it's okay to say sorry. But I want to be clear that it's not a suggestion of defeat. It's just a human aspect of a conversation, right? So you should always ask for what you want. In fact, I might even take that back, because I think this group is women. I'm constantly telling women to not apologize. But I was just saying that in case you do, that it doesn't mean that you are a failure, and you should continue to present yourself as a winner and go after what you want. Next slide. So, I mean, I really honestly just love this slide. And I would love to hear your questions, your feedback about what I've shared. And I want you to remember that you are the experts for your own path, right? Like I've just shared what's worked for me specifically, and things that I've worked on with really good friends. But you might find that some elements serve you better than others. So I hope this is a group that can share what's worked for them, as well as ask any questions about how they can get where they want to go. So thanks so much. I'm so glad to talk to all of you today. And there's my cell phone and my my email. So call me, text me, whatever.
Thank you so much.
Corintha.
Should we stop recording for this discussion portion, perhaps?
Sure, we can. Let me pause us.